Let's start with the truth. If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. Belief is not something you're born with. It's not a gift. It's not inherited. It's built. Just like a muscle, belief grows through repetition, pressure, practice. You see, most people are waiting for permission. Permission from others, from society, from their past, from their pain. But you don't need permission to become powerful. You need clarity and commitment. Believing in yourself isn't just a motivational slogan. It's a foundational principle for everything you want to achieve in life. It is the bedrock of every breakthrough, every success, every transformation. You can have the best strategies, the best tools, the best connections, but if you don't believe in your ability to follow through, none of those things will ever matter. Your mindset will sabotage your momentum before you even begin. Self-belief is not ego, it's not arrogance, it's not pretending to be better than others. It's the deep, unshakable recognition that you are capable, that you are resourceful, and that you have what it takes to grow, even when you don't yet have all the answers. It's a powerful internal certainty that says, no matter what happens, I will figure it out. Now, here's the truth. Most people miss self. Belief is not something you're born with. It's built brick, day by day. It's a practice, not a gift. And just like any skill, it can be developed, refined, and strengthened through conscious effort. Think about it this way. Everything in your life right now, your career, your relationships, your health, your finances, is a reflection of what you've believed about yourself over time. If you believed you weren't worthy of love, you may have stayed in relationships that didn't honor your value. If you believed you weren't smart enough or ready, maybe you never applied for that position, started that business, or took the leap you knew in your heart you were meant to take. So ask yourself, in your life, are you playing small because of a lack of belief? Belief acts as a gatekeeper between the life you're living and the life you could be living. It's the filter through which you interpret challenge and opportunity. You believe in yourself, obstacles become tests you're willing to take. Without belief, even small problems become reasons to quit. But here's the empowering part. Belief isn't binary. You don't either have it or you don't. It lives on a scale. Every time you take a step forward, despite your fear, you move yourself one level higher, you reinforce a new identity. One that says, I can do hard things, I can grow, I can become. Self-belief also creates momentum. The more you believe, you act. The more you act, the more results you create. The more results you create, the more belief you build. It's a self-reinforcing loop. But the same is true in reverse. When belief is low, action is inconsistent, results are limited, doubt increases. This is why building belief must be intentional. It's not enough to passively hope that someday you'll wake up feeling more confident. You have to choose to believe. You have to plant the seed every single day through what you focus on, through what you say to yourself, through the people you surround yourself with, through the standards you hold yourself to. And let's not ignore this. Most of us were not taught how to believe in ourselves. In fact, often trained to doubt. Conditioned by failure, criticism, comparison, rejection, we internalized other people's limitations and called them our truth. But just because you've carried a belief for years doesn't make it valid. Some of your beliefs were never yours to begin with. The first step to rebuilding belief is awareness. Notice the voice inside your head. What does it say when you dream big? Does it encourage you or discourage you? Does it lift you or limit you? Then challenge that voice, interrupt it, replace it. Instead of saying, I can't, try saying, what if I could? Instead of, I'm not ready, say, I'm willing to grow. It may feel unfamiliar at first, but over time, your nervous system begins to adapt. Your mind becomes more open. Your energy shifts. You begin to see yourself differently. Finally understand this belief without evidence feels hard. That's why you must create your own evidence. By doing the things you said you would do. Build trust with yourself. Honor your word. Show up. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you teach your brain that you are someone worth believing in. In the end, most important belief isn't that you'll never fail, it's that you'll never stop. That no matter how many times life knocks you down, you'll stand up again stronger. That your dreams are worth fighting for. That you are worth betting on. You truly believe in yourself. You become unstoppable, not because you have no fear, but because you no longer allow fear to lead. Most people are not held back by their external circumstances. They are held back by their internal beliefs. Invisible chains that keep people stuck are not physical barriers, but mental ones. And these barriers aren't built in a day. They're constructed slowly over time based on what we've seen, heard, felt, and experienced. Limiting beliefs are powerful not because they are true, because we have repeated them so often that they feel true. When you begin to look closely at what holds you back, you'll often find that it's not a lack of intelligence, talent, or resources. It's a set of quiet, persistent thoughts whispering, you can't, you shouldn't, you're not good enough, you always mess it up. These thoughts might sound like your own voice, but in reality, they were planted there by your environment, your upbringing, your failures, and the opinions of others. Human beings are meaning-making machines. We don't just experience life, we interpret it. The interpretations we choose become the stories we live by. For example, if you once failed at something important, your mind may have created a rule, I'm not good at this. If you were rejected or criticized as a child, you might have internalized the idea that I don't deserve love or I'm not valuable. These interpretations, when left unchallenged, grow roots. And over time, they turn into deeply ingrained beliefs that filter how you see yourself and what you believe is possible. The brain's job is survival, not success. Its default setting is to avoid pain and seek safety. And so whenever you consider doing something bold, starting a business, speaking your truth, stepping into the unknown, your brain searches through your past and finds every moment of discomfort, every failure, every judgment you've ever received. Then it shouts, don't do it. Stay where you are. It's too risky. But here's what most people don't realize. The fear you feel isn't a warning sign. It's a reflection of an old belief system trying to protect you. It's not telling you the truth. It's telling you a story based on outdated data. You weren't born with self-doubt. You weren't born thinking you're unworthy. You learned those thoughts, which means you can unlearn them. Importantly, you can replace them. It begins with awareness. You cannot change what you're not willing to face. Start by identifying the specific beliefs that are limiting you. Where are you telling yourself, I can't? Do you feel unqualified or incapable? And most importantly, who taught you to believe that? Was it a parent, a teacher, a friend, society, or a painful experience? Once you locate the origin of that belief, you'll often realize it was formed under emotional stress, not rational thinking. Understanding that limiting beliefs are learned is a powerful shift because anything learned can be unlearned. Not the same person today as you were when that belief was created. You have more insight, more experience, more tools. The beliefs that served you at one point, maybe to stay safe or avoid rejection, might be the very ones that are suffocating your potential today. One of the most effective ways to dismantle a limiting belief is to challenge it with evidence. Ask yourself, is this always true? Can I find a time in my life where the opposite was true? Can I look at people like me who have succeeded? Can I prove this wrong through action, even in a small way? Each time you challenge a belief and act in defiance of it, you weaken its power. You're sending a signal to your brain. This rule no longer applies. I'm choosing a new standard. And here's something else to remember. Beliefs are reinforced through repetition. Just as negative thoughts repeated over time created your limits, empowering thoughts repeated daily can create your breakthroughs. This is why affirmations, journaling, visualization, speaking your goals out loud are more than just motivational tools. They're reprogramming techniques. You are installing new software in your subconscious mind. Of course, this is not an overnight process. You don't destroy decades of conditioning in a single moment. But every time you step into courage, every time you refuse to let an old belief dictate your next move, you're rewiring your brain. You're creating a new identity. You're shifting from survival to growth. The only thing standing between you and your next level is the belief that it's not possible. But possibility is not something you wait to feel. It's something you decide to create. That decision starts when you stop letting fear write your story and start choosing beliefs that align with your highest self, not your oldest wound. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not your patterns. You are the one who decides what comes next. And when you learn to rewrite the beliefs that once held you back, you don't just change your mindset. You change your entire future. Your life is shaped not just by what happens to you, by the story you tell yourself about what happens to you. Every human being has an inner story, an invisible script running in the background that defines what they think they are capable of, what they believe they deserve, how they interpret the world. And here's the thing, most people don't realize they're living by a script they didn't consciously choose. It was written by their past, their parents, their failures, their pain. But that story, no matter how deeply ingrained, can be rewritten. The language you use internally and externally acts like programming code. If you constantly say, I always mess things up, I'm not that kind of person, I've never been confident, you're reinforcing the identity that matches those statements. You're strengthening the version of yourself that stays small, that hesitates, that plays safe. The language works both ways. When you change the words, you change the identity. Start saying, I'm learning, I'm becoming, I'm figuring it out, and your brain begins to search for ways to make those statements true. Brain is always listening. It takes everything you say about yourself and files it away as evidence. So if you constantly describe yourself in limiting terms, your subconscious mind begins to filter the world through that belief. Stop seeing opportunities, it overlooks potential, it becomes blind to growth. But when you speak with possibility, even if you don't fully believe it yet, you plant seeds, and those seeds grow with repetition. This is why rewriting your inner story isn't just about motivation. It's a conscious reprogramming of how you relate to yourself. Think about the stories you tell about your past. Do you talk about it as something that damaged you or something that prepared you? Do you say, I failed, or do you say, I learned? The facts might be the same, but the meaning is radically different. It's the meaning that creates the emotional pattern you live in. You see, two people can go through the same experience, rejection, loss, embarrassment, and walk away with completely different beliefs. One says, that broke me, and the other says, that built me. What makes the difference? The story they attach to it. And here's what's important, that story is a choice. It's not automatic. It's not set in stone. It's a decision you make every time you remember, reflect, or retell your experience. If you want to change your life, you have to become aware of the narrative you're living by. Ask yourself, what do I say about myself when no one is listening? Do I believe I'm worthy of? Where did those beliefs come from? Are they empowering, or are they inherited limitations that no longer serve me? The truth is, identity is not fixed. You are not one version of yourself forever. You are a fluid, evolving being. Every day, you have the opportunity to decide, who do I want to be? Not based on who you were yesterday, but based on who you're becoming. The shift happens when you stop letting your past define your future and start living in alignment with your intended identity, not your remembered one. Rewriting your inner story requires courage, because at first, it feels unfamiliar. You might feel like you're lying to yourself when you say, I am confident, or I am powerful, or I can figure this out. But you're not lying, you're leading. You're giving your mind a new direction to follow. You're breaking out of the old neural loops and creating space for transformation. It's important to understand that your identity isn't changed by wishful thinking, it's changed by action. Every time you act in alignment with a new story, you make it real. You say you're disciplined, prove it by showing up. You say you're resilient, prove it by standing back up. The more you act according to your future self, the faster your current self evolves. And yes, there will be resistance. Story won't go quietly. It will fight for your attention, especially when you feel fear, uncertainty, or stress. That's when it's most critical to hold the line, to remind yourself that may have been my story, but it's not my identity. I get to choose who I am now. Over time, as you reinforce the new story with consistent language and aligned action, something powerful happens. You stop just saying it and you start believing it. Then you start becoming it. And once you become it, longer need to force belief. It becomes your natural state, not because the world changed, but because your perception and your self-perception did. You are the author of your story, not your past, not your pain, not your environment. When you reclaim the pen and write consciously, deliberately, and powerfully, you begin to live not by default, but by design. That's where real change begins, not just outside, but deep within. You can talk about confidence. You can think about belief. You can plan, journal, visualize, and set intentions. But none of it truly matters. None of it truly sticks until you take action, because action is what makes belief real. Action is what transforms ideas and identity. It's one thing to say, I believe I can change. It's something entirely different to prove it to yourself by showing up, especially when it's hard, especially when you're scared, especially when the outcome isn't guaranteed. What people often don't understand is that belief doesn't precede action. It follows it. You don't wait until you believe in yourself before taking the first step. That's a trap. That's the lie we tell ourselves to avoid discomfort. I'll start when I'm more confident. No, you won't. Confidence comes because you started. You build belief by taking small, aligned, uncomfortable steps again and again. Each time you follow through, you send a message to your nervous system that says, I can rely on myself. That is the foundation of self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of self-belief. The problem is that we've been conditioned to overthink, to wait for the perfect moment, to gather more information, to predict every possible outcome before we move. But you don't need more knowledge. You need more courage. You don't need a 10-step plan. You need to take the next step, because that next step holds all the growth, all the clarity, all the momentum that overthinking will never give you. Thinking creates concepts. Doing creates evidence. Think about this. How do you know a child can walk? Not because they read a book on walking or watched 100 tutorials. You know they can walk because they stood up, fell down, got back up, and kept taking steps until walking became natural. Confidence in walking didn't come from thinking. It came from trying, falling, adapting, and building competence through repetition. Adults aren't any different. The only reason we fear action is because we're afraid of failure and judgment. Made mistakes mean something about our worth instead of what they actually are, part of the learning curve. We forget the people we admire didn't become extraordinary by avoiding mistakes. They became extraordinary because they acted through uncertainty, fear, and rejection until belief caught up with their behavior. Every time you choose action over hesitation, you rewrite a small part of your identity. If you feel stuck, if you feel lost, if you feel like nothing is changing, it's usually not because you don't know what to do. It's because you're not doing it. The gap between who you are and who you want to be is filled with consistent, uncomfortable, sometimes messy action. That's the work. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. There is no substitute for doing. There is no shortcut around the process. And here's the thing, action doesn't have to be huge to be effective. Matters is alignment and consistency. You want to be a better speaker? Speak more. You want to be more confident in the gym? Show up regularly. You want to become disciplined? Follow through on the smallest commitment. Get up when you say you will. Finish the task you started. Keep your word even when no one's watching. These micro actions build macro confidence. You don't need to feel ready to act. You need to act in order to feel ready. Action creates energy. Action disrupts fear. Action generates momentum. Most people are waiting for a breakthrough. But breakthroughs don't come from waiting. They come from movement, from doing the thing. Even when your hands are shaking, even when the voice in your head says, you're not enough. That voice will never go away completely, but you can drown it out, not by arguing with it, but by proving it wrong. The longer you wait to act, the more powerful your fear becomes. But the moment you move, even slightly, you begin to weaken that fear. The moment you act, you flip the switch from powerless to powerful. And the more you act in alignment with who you want to become, the less you'll have to force belief. It will start to feel natural. Belief is not built in theory, it is built in motion. If you want to believe in yourself, stop waiting for the right moment and create it. Stop looking for certainty and be the one who creates it through consistent execution. Your potential is not hidden. It's just waiting on the other side of a step you've been delaying. You don't need to do everything today, but you do need to do something. One action, one decision, one movement forward. Because that's how belief begins. Not all at once. One choice at a time, you build it, you reinforce it, you become it. Then one day you wake up and realize that confidence isn't something you were missing. It's something you've been earning. The greatest misconception about belief is that it means never struggling, never doubting, never falling. But in reality, belief is built not in moments of ease, but in the moments where things fall apart and you choose to keep going anyway. Resilience is what separates people who keep believing in themselves from those who give up. It's not a trait you're born with. It's a muscle you build. And like any muscle, it gets stronger through resistance, repetition, and recovery. Every person faces setbacks. Every person experiences failure, disappointment, criticism, and rejection. It's not personal. It's part of the journey. The difference is in how you respond. Do you internalize the failure and make it part of your identity? Or do you use it as fuel to grow, to adapt, and to refine your path forward? Resilient people don't avoid hardship. They rise through it. They understand that failure is not a sign to quit, but a signal to adjust. They know that each setback is preparing them, not punishing them. You see, belief isn't proven when everything is going right. Anyone can feel confident when the path is smooth. Real belief reveals itself when you hit the wall and still push through. When the plan falls apart and you create a new one. You lose momentum and rebuild it from scratch. That's when self-belief is tested and forged. Resilience is the proof that belief exists in more than just words. It shows that you trust yourself enough to face the storm, take the hit, still get up again. And the more you get up, the more you build unshakable inner strength. Not because you never fall, but because falling doesn't define you anymore. The bounce back becomes your identity, not the breakdown. The process of resilience begins with how you interpret your challenges. If you see failure as final, it crushes belief. But if you see failure as feedback, it sharpens belief. The mindset you bring to your obstacles determines what you take from them. Resilient people ask different questions. They don't say, why is this happening to me? They ask, what is this trying to teach me? They don't say, I can't do this. They say, can I do next? And resilience doesn't always mean pushing harder. Sometimes it means pausing, reassessing, and choosing a new direction. It's not about being reckless. It's about being relentless in your commitment to your growth. It's knowing that even when life punches you in the face, you still have choices. You can still move forward. Even if it's slowly, you can still choose to believe, even if it hurts. There will be moments where you feel like it's not working. Nothing is going according to plan, where you start questioning everything, your abilities, your purpose, your direction. That's normal. That's part of the path. But that's also where most people quit. Not because they weren't good enough, because they thought struggling meant they were failing. It doesn't. Struggle means you're in the process of becoming. Growth is messy. Transformation is uncomfortable, and belief is forged in the fire of that discomfort. Each time you overcome something hard, no matter how small, you reinforce the story that you are capable. Each obstacle you navigate becomes evidence that you are stronger than you thought. Resilience isn't about pretending everything's okay. It's about standing in the truth, facing the difficulty, and saying, this won't break me. This will build me. When you adopt that perspective, you stop fearing failure. You stop avoiding challenge. You stop resisting the journey. Because you know it's not just about reaching the destination. It's about becoming the kind of person who can handle the journey. Someone who is adaptable. Someone who is disciplined. Someone who gets stronger because of the setbacks, in spite of them. Resilience turns pain into purpose. It turns mistakes into mastery. It turns fear into fuel. And every time you tap into that strength, you expand your belief in yourself. You start to trust not just your ability to succeed, your ability to survive whatever happens along the way. That's where real confidence is born, not from the absence of adversity, but from your proven ability to rise above it. So when life gets hard, and it will, don't retreat, don't shrink. Tell yourself it's a sign to stop. Instead, take a breath, reset your focus, and remind yourself I've made it through worse. I built myself before, and I can do it again. Because belief that isn't tested can't be trusted. Belief that's been through the fire, belief that's been torn down and rebuilt. That belief becomes unshakable. That belief becomes who you are. Confidence is not something you're born with. It's something you generate. It doesn't show up by chance. It shows up through patterns. And those patterns are built through your habits, your environment, and the way you start and manage your day. Confidence isn't just a feeling. It's a state. And like any state, it can be activated, trained, and strengthened through ritual. If you rely on confidence to just show up when you need it most, you're putting your future in the hands of chance. That's not sustainable. Sustainable is creating a daily structure that conditions your mind and body to operate from strength, clarity, and purpose. The most successful, grounded, and self-assured people aren't confident because life is easy. Confident because they prime themselves for it. They take control of their internal state before the world has a chance to influence it. Rituals are powerful because they train the nervous system. You engage in a repeated set of behaviors, especially early in the day. You're not just checking boxes. You're programming your physiology, your focus, and your beliefs. You're saying, this is who I am. This is how I move. This is what I expect from myself. When that becomes consistent, your brain begins to anchor that identity. It becomes your default. Start by understanding that confidence doesn't begin in the mind alone. It begins in the body. Your posture, your breathing, your movement all affect how you feel. Most people try to think their way into confidence while sitting in a slouched position, breathing shallowly and reinforcing doubt through their inner dialogue. It doesn't work. To feel powerful, you must use your physiology to shift your energy, stand tall, breathe deeply, move with intensity, change your posture, and you immediately change your state. Create a morning ritual that is designed to put you in a peak state before the day even begins. This isn't about productivity hacks. It's about identity reinforcement. Wake up and get your body moving, whether through stretching, walking, exercise, or anything that wakes up your system. Motion creates emotion. Then feed your mind. Read something that inspires you. Listen to something that sharpens your focus. Speak affirmations that align with who you're becoming, not who you used to be. Your brain is most impressionable in the first 30 minutes of your day. You expose it to becomes the tone for how you'll interpret the world. So if you scroll through negativity, distractions, and comparisons right after waking up, you've already handed your power away. But if you begin with intention, with reflection, clarity, then you take control. That control builds belief. It builds certainty, and certainty breeds confidence. Also, part of your ritual needs to include how you speak to yourself. Words shape reality. The conversation you have with yourself is the most influential voice you'll ever hear. Most people are running mental scripts that tear them down. Scripts like, I never get it right. I'm just not that kind of person, or I always mess up. That internal language is reinforcing the identity you're trying to outgrow. You must interrupt it. You must upgrade the script. Speak to yourself the way you would to someone you love, someone you believe in. Use language that challenges you, not crushes you. Say things like, I am capable. I can handle this. I'm learning every day, and I do hard things. Don't wait to believe it before you say it. Say it until you believe it. Over time, your subconscious mind will accept it as truth. Ritual also means checking in with your standards daily. Who are you committed to being no matter what happens? Confidence comes from alignment. When your words, actions, and standards line up, you feel solid. But when you break promises to yourself, you say one thing and do another, you create inner conflict. That conflict weakens confidence. So part of your daily ritual must include recommitting to your standards. Not perfection, but progress, consistency, and self-respect. Lastly, recognize that confidence isn't permanent. It needs to be renewed every day. Like a flame, it must be protected, fueled, and intentionally reignited. Your ritual becomes the match. It's the ignition point that reminds you of your power before the world tests it. And when you practice that daily, you stop needing external validation. You stop chasing temporary motivation. You become someone who knows who they are, even when things feel uncertain. Confidence is not magic. It's not luck. It's not genetics. It's the result of choices, habits, and repeated moments where you show up for yourself. Build the ritual, and the ritual will build the belief.